Hi, and welcome to the Business of Adulting, a monthly podcast that seeks to demystify entrepreneurship, education, mindfulness, and growth in a fast-paced world. I am Sipo, and I'm with Siwe Vuta. Tembela Ntlemeza is not with us today. She had to take some of the personal matters, and she will join us in the next episode. But she is definitely with us in spirit, and for sure she's missing you so much as we did miss you guys. I think today we're recording our second episode. We're very excited to be with you again, and thanks so much for giving us your time and your ears. So following our highly heated introductory podcast, wherein we spend a lot of time trying to differentiate and define an innovator entrepreneur, we asked a lot of questions, and the big questions were: is entrepreneurship for everyone? Are entrepreneurs on or can they be taught? So we would like to hear from you, views on the subject. You can reach out to us, tell us what you think, and teach us. Maybe we can change our positions. I'm not sure if Swe has changed his positions from his side, but from my side, I think I have been schooled a bit and I've done a lot of research. And actually, I'm actually changing my position. In fact, I'm following both sides. I think that entrepreneurs can be taught, at the same time they can be born. Swe, how are you, sir? And how are things going from your side?
I know, man. I'm all good. Interesting to hear that you've had a slight change of mind there. And the same thing happened to me. So we came to the same realization. I think it's a bit of both. So I think it starts off with having a natural inclination towards entrepreneurship and then having skills then refined, to then enable you to be one that operates optimally. Great outcomes, I suppose, from our first episode, that we both, had new perspectives presented to us, and we were receptive to changing our opinions based on those, perceptions. But I just do want to say we got to thoroughly miss Utembela. It was, great recording the first one with her. I wish she'd be with us even in this one. But I mean, I trust that both you and I are gonna hold the fort strong. But she definitely is gonna be missed, and we can't wait to have her on in the next recording. Otherwise, man, it's been great, man. I can't complain. I can't complain.
No, perfect. It's amazing. And also, it's big days, so people are busy.
Yeah.
Hopefully, this episode will take people home safe and they will have something to think about throughout the festive season, because I would believe that this is our last episode. This is our second and the last episode for this year.
Yeah.
Hopefully, in the second week of January, we'll have an interesting episode that we're coming with. And we hope that we'll have a guest. It will be interesting to have guests. Also, from our listeners, if they would be interested to reach out to us, if they have topics that they would want us to tackle, it would be interesting to hear them. And also if they want to be a guest, because we do not have special people here. Everyone is special to us. We all grow
Absolutely.
together, which is very important. So we don't talk to certain people. We talk to everyone. We talk with everyone. So this is your opportunity to come and voice your views, which might not have been heard. So it is a big opportunity for you to come in. And
Yeah.
yes,
And they can come in and tell us that, Sivio is speaking rubbish. We are completely open to debates, and as we've just demonstrated, to changing our minds.
yes, yes.
Please do engage, and then we'd be happy to have you on as a guest on the podcast, and even as a returning feature. Who knows?
Mm, mm.
Just on the engagement, I do want to send a huge word of thanks to our listeners. The engagement across our social media platforms has been great following the initial release of our first episode and the promotion videos we've posted. We've been getting some love on Twitter, on TikTok, and we actually first got introduced to TikTok after launching the podcast. And
Yes.
we after having done the research, we came to learn that it's a really prominent platform, and we do want to be present on that platform. And the engagement has been great there on Instagram, Facebook, as well as YouTube. And I'm particularly pleased with the numbers we've seen on YouTube.
Mm,
Few people have listened to the full length episode, and 80% of the viewers of the full episode have actually listened to the full thing. So,
Wow, that's amazing.
and I mean, we've had subscribers across the board. So yeah, thanks, to our fellow friends, for engaging and showing interest in what we're trying to build off the ground here. And we commit to, upping our game and producing content that's going to keep you guys interested. But yeah, just wanted to say shout out and a huge word of thanks.
And yeah, we really need to thank our listeners. Also, we've seen a lot of downloads, which is very important from Podbean. It shows
Yeah.
there is something, and also from people. Also, the comments that we get from people out there. I remember also on LinkedIn, we've seen a lot of impressions. I think over 1,000, which is very
Wow.
interesting for a first for an introductory episode.
Definitely.
It shows that there is something that we are building. But for sure, we cannot build this without our listeners and our viewers. So it's important that they come on board. And also, please share this with as many people as possible, your friends and also your family. I think there's lots of things that they can learn in here, and also a lot of things that they can unlearn. So it's also an opportunity for us to challenge ourselves.
Absolutely.
And when I mean us, I mean our viewers included also, and us, because an opportunity we challenge our views, we learn and unlearn, and this is one of the most important things.
Yeah.
And also, today we are talking about building sustainable businesses, but we cannot talk about building sustainable businesses without first understanding what are the key things that one would want to look at before they can even start building, or they can even start establishing a business. This is very important because what we have been seeing, and I will talk from experience, especially from where I'm coming from in the rural areas of Lusikisik. A lot of people, they are saying they have businesses, and when I open this box called the business, I only get to find out about these people, they do not have businesses, they only have companies. And I wouldn't blame them because there's lack of knowledge about businesses, what it takes to build a business, what it takes to start a business, and what does it mean. What they know when they talk about businesses, they talk mostly from tenders side, because they've been told, but you need to register a business, you need to comply, have BE, have SARS, be tax compliant, and also apply for tender. So that's what they know. But would you say they have a clear understanding of running a business, of starting a business, what it means to run a business? That's something that we need to really get into the crux of it and demystify this business thing so that everyone can understand that starting a business is a lot of work. It's not just about registering a business. And also, we would want to take this from our perspective and from our experience, because we've made the same mistakes. Also, just jumping into registering a business because there's an interesting idea that has been presented to us, or there's an opportunity that we see, and the first thing that we think is to start a business. As viewer, would you want to take us through some of your experience and the things that we have done you think you shouldn't have done first before you have clearly understood what it means to run a business? So what are the key things? And also, it would be interesting to give people a lived experience, not something that is from the book. And I think I would imagine that we've worked on a lot of businesses together. We've been in this enterprise space for some time. So we've made a lot of mistakes. You can talk about the likes of visual metrics. You can talk about the new ventures that we're running and the ventures that we are actually running today. So if you can just give our viewers, what's your understanding? What's the mistakes you have made? Because I think it's all about the mistakes. I wouldn't want to spend a lot of time talking about what we've done right. Can we talk about what we've done wrong so that our listeners do not do not repeat the same mistakes that we've made?
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And before I jump into or attempt to answer the question, I just do want to highlight to our listeners that we had a meeting subsequent to the release of our first episode. And we then thought to rejig the structuring of the program. So the taken is that we want to, as Sipos just stated, relate to our listeners our entrepreneurial journeys I mean, we've been at it for quite some time, and we're immersed in it. And we'd be very pleased, to share our lived experiences, what we're currently going through, and what we're looking forward to our listeners. And by doing so, we really hope that we're going to aid a lot of them to avoid some of the mistakes that we've made. And it's just it makes for interesting listening, to hear what our current struggles are, and then maybe 5 years down the line, where we will be, and hopefully things would have panned out well, and we would be in a good position. And I think it would be, interesting to look back and say, when I first listened to these guys, this is what they were going through, but look at them now. So I want to take you
Mm,
along,
mm,
and hope inspire you maybe to get started, because you'll see that we are human beings, we are people, much like you. And Sipo stated that he's from a rural village in the Eastern Cape, as am I, just by the way. So we come from the absolute bottom, and hope to inspire people to realize that this is possible. And we aim to give you some guidance that are going to help you have an easier journey, a seamless journey. Ukuthi
yes.
isiXhosa,
Mm,
or I might butcher this, but indlela ibuzwa kwabaphambili type.
injalo.
So you don't necessarily need to play with fire to get burnt. You can see me playing with fire, get burnt, and then to keep away from fire, because you will get burnt. So that's the new direction we've taken for the podcast, and it might change next week. It might change the week after. It might change a year from now, 2 years from now, because we're quite agile. And I think we adopt the same philosophy with the running of our businesses currently, and the businesses we've tried to establish in the past. Come back to your
Mm, mm,
question, Sira. I relate in the first audience, and I'm sure many of our listeners caught my initial inspiration to get into business. But for the benefit of those who didn't listen to the first episode, and I encourage you guys to listen back on the episode. Um, I was working for a firm, and then I had someone approach me wanting assistance with the very thing that the firm supplies in some respects, although he wanted assistance on a different software. So I was working for a technology firm that produces software, and someone had come in requesting assistance for something similar using a different software. I helped that guy because I had some awareness of the alternative software, and he then referred some more people to me, and then eventually we got Visual Matrix started on the background of those experiences. So when I look back at the journey that it has been with Visual Matrix, one of the things I sort of regret and I look back at as a mistake is our failure to do proper and diligent market analysis. So we had come up with a solution, and it was relatively straightforward. We have people who have a lack of understanding of a very technical software, and so we want to make that easily accessible to them. We want to help them navigate and fully utilize the software. That was our value proposition in the most basic and fundamental of terms. But what we didn't do is draw a medium to long-term
mm,
plan
mm,
for the business. So we got too caught up in the solving of the problem, but we failed to then build a business out of this opportunity that we had observed. And as a result, we jumped right into registering a business, which comes with a lot of requirements. And
mm,
what I'd like
mm.
to recommend to our listeners is that, and I might get into trouble for this, if anyone or from any of the official government entities hears this, but if your company is a business to customer company, then you may want to delay such things as business registration for as long as you can get away with. And this is because it comes again with some commitments and some requirements that are a pain when you are still in the process of discovering your market segment and mapping it out fully and refining your value proposition. So we were very much still at the discovery phase of this opportunity, and we jumped right into formalizing the business, having skipped many steps that I believe should follow before you get to that point. Um, and we
Mm,
got
mm,
too excited, and this is something I pick up a lot now, with the benefit of hindsight in the entrepreneurs that I engage with on a day-to-day in the work that I do. We get so caught up in the excitement of our new ideas and new concepts that we want to try, that we jump right to the very end without necessarily laying a solid foundation upon which to build upon. And that is counterintuitive to the process of building a sustainable business. I think you can liken it to building it a house. I just referred to a foundation. And if you have a beautiful design of a house, right? This is something like anyone has ever seen before. I'm talking really fascinating material and really innovative design of a house. You might get ahead of yourself and get excited about building the structure above the ground. So this is the design of the house that you are excited about. But if you fail then to lay a proper foundation, the wonderful design is probably going to topple, in a really
mm,
time.
mm.
And that is something I think we were guilty of right at the very beginning. But I'm gonna give it back to you, Sipo, to relay some of your experiences, and what your opinions are on how we started and the approach we initially adopted. But and thereafter, I would like to then relate to our audience what happened after we'd come to that realization, and what a critical role the pandemic played in us moving from where we initially started, forcing us to introspect and to pivot, and how things have then emerged to date. But yeah, man, what are some of your
Mm,
first
mm.
thoughts with how we started?
Yeah, very, very interesting when you say we did not do proper research in understanding our market. And also, I would like to stress that because it's one of the key important thing one needs to look at before they can establish a business. What is my market? How is my market structured? Who are my key audience? So going down and segmenting your business, your customers, understanding who exactly need your solution. With us, it was very clear who needs our solution, but I don't think we knew what we were doing, in a sense that we jumped excited about the opportunity. We jumped saving as helping our people, our customers. So I still think that it was more of a help. We were helping people. We were not running it as a business. That's what we're doing, helping people. So with them giving us what they can give us, because first of all, we didn't have a proper fee structure, didn't know how to price, which is very important. Also, you must know how to price your services and your products, and also doing a lot of benchmarking there. We should have done a lot of benchmarking, though there were not a lot of people who were providing what we're providing, but there were other avenues, or there were other solutions that were available in the market. So we could have started there. And also, two, we didn't do proper validation of the business model. So we didn't have a proper business model in place. The revenue streams were there, but we didn't know that those were our key revenue streams. So we were all over the show. And those were the key things that we had a problem with. And also, we were not evolving enough with the business because there was a lot of demand, and the demand was growing. I remember we had clients in the Durban, we had clients in the Western Cape, we had clients in the Eastern Cape, we had clients also in fact, across the
Yeah,
country.
I remember that.
And also, across the country. And also, it's just the two of us excited about this. And the word of mouth, you must never, ever doubt the word of mouth or underplay that, because we were not doing a lot of advertising. In fact, we were not even advertising
Yeah.
ourselves. People were just talking about us in their groups, and also coming to us. I heard about you from these guys. I'm also joining. I remember we didn't have proper venues also where we were going to trade, which will assist our people.
Yeah.
Because
Just very
that
quickly,
was very interesting.
just very quickly on word of mouth. It's still the
Yeah.
most effective marketing tool today. in spite of digital, believe it or not, are more
Yes.
likely to purchase a recommendation made by a trusted relative or friend than they are likely to purchase a product or service that they read an online review about. So word of mouth is very critical, and we had that to our advantage. When we
Yes.
started, there weren't too many people doing this, and I suspect that we may have been the first to do it in the way that we did it. And so many companies have have come out, of replicating our initial model, although we didn't have a good understanding of it. But some people saw
Yes,
it
exactly.
and they did it better than we did. But we're still coming to the changes we made, catalyzed by the pandemic. But I just wanted to come in there and stress the importance of word of mouth. And to our audience, what you want to do is have a solid, loyal customer base, and those people then become advocates
And
of
then
of
and
your
and then
of
our,
your
and then those
business.
the
Uh-huh.
and then the people will ask, how do I have a solid base of loyal customers, which is very important. Also, I think with us we were very clear and very, yeah, the value was very clear, the value we're providing, and we're very good at it. In fact, we are still good at what we're doing. Yeah. We're very clear. There was no doubt, no question about that. Hence, it was easy for us to get a lot of clients without even advertising. So it means the value we're providing, the service was up to standard. We're assisting people out. And I would want you to touch a bit on that. A lot of people that we have helped in the process that were able now to graduate, people were actually, or maybe before you even touch on that, you want to give a glimpse of people, what is this visual metrics? I think it's very important there that we also give people what is visual metrics, what does visual metrics do? Because also people would be interested what these people are talking about. They would want to know. So we were very clear about that, but we didn't know how our people would want to consume our service. And we were not spending a lot of time in there because you would have a proper service in place, you would have a proper product, but then the manner in which the people get access to that product is very important. Also, we didn't have a proper delivery approach, how to deliver our value to our clients. Hence, we were out all over the show. We didn't know where we're doing. We want to do it online. Sometimes we do it in person. We meet in different venues. Sometimes we get into this venue and then we are being kicked out. We have to quickly think about the other venue. Remember, we even went to Gandhi Square and then we quickly had to change and find another venue.
Yeah.
Remember, so those were the issues that we had because we were so excited about what we're offering and forgetting the processes. So the processes and what you're going to need for you to run your business seamlessly is very important.
Yeah.
The customer experience and the customer journey is very important. So our customer journey onboarding process was not that easy at all. See, it was not easy. It wasn't easy for clients to actually reach to us. Also, it wasn't easy for us to get into our clients. So those were the key things that we missed when we were starting a business. And also remember, we are getting money. Also managing the cash flow, it's not easy. We're not sure how to manage the cash flow. We're excited about the money that comes to us. See, but then managing that's also another story. And which, if you want to build a proper business and sustainable business, you need to be very strict about managing your cash flow. So also, if you are interested, you might want to check out Growth Link. There's an article that is talking about the causes of poor cash flow management in small businesses. You want to check that on my growthlink.co.za. Just check it out. It's an interesting article, but will give you a lot of understanding about how you should be managing your cash flow in the business.
Yeah, no, and I do want to commend you on the content that you put out on Growth Link. That's MBA level type of material that you simplify for anyone to make sense of, man. So
Mm.
kudos to you, and I really do encourage our listeners to check it out. I certainly do, check out and read some of the work that you put out, and I'm blown away by the insights that you share, with every article. And the most recent article I read which spoke a bit about the topic we are unpacking today. In terms of building sustainable business is fantastic, and some of the considerations that you need to make. Think when we
Mm.
started, and just shortly, I'm gonna give a glimpse overview of visual matrix. But when we started, we our understanding of business was a transactional exchange. So I am providing you a service, in inverted commas, a value, and in exchange, you are, compensating me for it. That's where it
Exactly.
ends. And we didn't take care to have again medium to long term planning, just in terms of how then this evolves into a business. We're just excited about doing what we were doing. And again, this is something a lot of
Mm.
entrepreneurs, and especially those that are engaged with, find this is a position that a lot of them find themselves in, where they are excited and maybe to some degree obsessed about what they are doing and aren't interested in anything else. So let me, in fact, before I go to giving an overview of visual matrix, let me make another analogy. I say this to my manager every time we have a performance review, that I completely understand why artists and athletes have managers, who the business side
Mm.
of things. Because I, as an athlete, I just want to be on the pitch, and I want to perform. You know, if it's a
Exactly.
World Cup happening, I just want to play. Or if it's a basketball athlete, whatever the case might be, I want to be in the field, and I want to be doing what I have refined a talent with, right? And if I'm an artist, I want to perform, I want to record, I want to create. And I don't want to deal with contracts. I don't want to deal with administration and all of that. And so I'll have a manager. And maybe,
Exactly.
as you start to grow and scale your business, and maybe Butsipo, this is something you are better versed in, but just in terms of building a team, introspecting and being truthful about your skill sets, perhaps
Mm.
the
Mm.
originator of the idea, and then recognizing what other supplementary skills and expertise you need in order to go all the way to your desired destination. Because if you are keeping it to yourself, you certainly will have shortfalls. No one is good at everything, right? So you do want to surround yourself with people who are going to complement the skill set this, so
Exactly.
that you can
Mm.
build towards something greater together. Um, so going back to visual matrix, to give you guys an overview of what we were, I had highlighted it a bit in our first episode, and again, if you hadn't listened, please do listen to the first episode. So visual matrix started off as a training and tutoring company. So just maybe to go two steps back, as explained a little earlier, I worked for a technology firm that produced geographic information system software. So as part of my duties, I would offer training to the end users of the software we were producing at the time, and under my current employer at the time. And then one day I get this a gentleman who comes in having paid a hefty amount to sit in for a training session. And during one of the breaks, he calls me to the side and says, "Listen, man, I am registered with an institution of higher learning in South Africa, and I am doing this module in geographic information systems for the third time. Now, one thing you need to know about geographic information systems is that it's highly technical. If and much like most technologies, right? If I give you something and I say, hey, there you go, good luck figuring it out. I'd say confidently 80% or so of the general population will not know where to start. So that gentleman was in that position, and many of his other fellow students at this institution of higher learning. So after having had a brief chat with them, I came to understand that they were using a different software to the software that we were producing at the company at which I was employed at the time. So I told this gentleman that, listen, man, you've wasted your money. The software we use at this firm is very different to the software that you are required to use for your academic pursuits. So let's meet over the weekend. and I'll help you out. I have some awareness of the software that you are using as well. So I meet this gentleman, and then there I help him out. He manages to graduate, and then he refers me to more people who I also assist, and they go on to graduate successfully. And that's the point at which I thought, hey, there's an opportunity here for us to actually build a business. And so how Visual Matrix started out was a tutoring and training company. We started off working with students from one institution, but over the years, we've amassed students from other institutions because they have the same challenge. It's a highly technical subject that does require some guidance. And if there isn't sufficient guidance, then you are going to run into a world of trouble. But having started off as a training and tutoring company, we did evolve into a consultancy where we've also worked on projects. So it isn't a student requiring training and assistance now, but it's a corporate that requires a project to be executed. Um, it's consulting, based on people who are within the industry, but who need to outsource, some of the work that needs to be done, and so on and so forth. So it's evolved quite a bit from where we started, although I would say the core and crux of the business model is still training. And I would want to extract the tutoring bit out of it and just say training because we also do conduct corporate training and it isn't restricted to students alone. So
Mm,
um,
mm.
um, I forget the question or where my line of thinking was going. Oh, here it is. So I relayed a little earlier some of the challenges that we ran into when we first established the business. And what I'm going to speak to next is the importance of remaining agile and being able to pivot and keeping your ear on the ground in terms of the market requirements because the market changes just about every day. So it's very
Exactly.
important for you
Exactly.
to constantly have your finger on the pulse
Mm,
with
mm,
new
mm.
developments, changes in technology, where the trends are moving. Right. So we started off at this location or at this position, and we really did lag behind in terms of adopting to industry requirements, even our market needs. We were just to be
Yes,
doing what we
yes.
were doing, and we had very poor governance practices at the time. We were using the money for things that I'm not very proud of today. We were and yeah, we didn't, we really didn't have, solid structures worked out. We got money, and then it was a weekend, and then we enjoyed life as rural boys in a
Yeah.
big city, exploring new locations and new experiences and what have you. But fast forward a few years later, we are hit by the pandemic. And it was actually a blessing in disguise. We're one of those companies that actually benefited from the pandemic because, as you mentioned a little earlier, before we had to um, before we had to find venues and we had challenges in some venues. Some venues had a cost, and there was a limit to the number of people we could have in one tutorial session. But because of the pandemic, the world realized that there are new and alternative ways of doing what we had been doing for the longest amount of time.
Mm,
Us, it was
mm, mm.
virtual, delivering our training service offering virtually. And that allowed us to record the sessions as well. So we were able to derive a new revenue stream. So someone who wasn't able to attend the live session can consume the recording. And yeah, we've just been expanding exponentially since, which has been wonderful. And I think I credit that to our ability to realize what's happening and then try to chart a different, way forward because we weren't necessarily willing to let go of the business. We realized that we needed to be innovative and creative in our thinking and define new ways of delivering our value proposition. So whereas it started off sort of in a manner that wasn't massively encouraging, I think it came with our maturing as well, and us, being open to other factors influencing our industry, and then
Mm.
adapting to those changes.
And it's also very important that we get to learn because what is important, you must always take a step back and see what is happening, what exactly are you doing. And we're lucky enough to realize down the line, but there's something not there. There's something wrong in how we're actually delivering this value or in how we're conducting our business. Hence, we took a step back and decided, you know what, let's rethink the delivery method. Hence, we thought the pandemic really played a critical role in us in actually thinking of going virtual, because now it allowed us to reach as many people as possible wherever they are. We didn't have to go to a specific venue. We don't have to be hiring venues. We're able to meet with people whenever and wherever they are, because right now we're limited with time. We had to find the venue, geographic area. I remember this one time I was in Umtata. I had to meet with the client that side. It was also interesting. You see, also some people would prefer one-on-one, see, because sometimes we would mix those people to just meet in one venue, and then some of them would want to say, no, I just want to pay for my time and I want to be alone. See, so the moving now to actually putting the processes in place, automating some of those things and putting the recordings in place, it allows us to reach to whoever we are, and also someone who wants to have a one-on-one session. It's easy for us to do that at any point in time. So this is just to give you a glimpse of the things or the mistakes that you're going to make, and you shouldn't lose heart because you made those mistakes. You shouldn't avoid them, because that's how you're going to learn. In business, you learn by doing mistakes, a lot of mistakes. But I can't stress enough the importance of managing your cash flow and your funds. See, it must be very clear that money for the business for business. And also, one thing that kills businesses is not to have a vision. You need to have a clear vision when you start a business. And everyone who is involved in the business must know the vision, where the company is going. What is the goal? What is the impact we are making? What is my role? It doesn't matter. It can go to the lowest employee of the business. It doesn't matter. Everyone contributes, and their contributions are very important, because if one person is not contributing, then the business is bound to fail. So everyone has a very important role to play in building the businesses. But just before we wrap up this subject of the key important things that you need to consider before you can establish a business, I think we might want to talk also about the other venture which we had started, Fuyawan. You might want to give us a glimpse of the few mistakes also we made in there. And then I think I will just wrap it up to just give just to summarize everything, or give our listeners key points that they need to note down before they can start a business.
And if we are one, there was probably one of the greatest experiences of my entrepreneurial journeys. It was a project that was quite far removed from things I personally found interesting and had an inclination towards, but I dove into the opportunity head first because I realized what a great opportunity it was, and I was going at it, with the least of the team, two people I have a high level of respect for, and whom I want to continue associating with, because I recognize their potential, and I wanted to ride along on their journeys, and be or have a front seat view of the levels of success they reach. So yeah, my motives for joining Fuya Wande might be questionable, but I genuinely did believe in the business. But maybe before I actually start my personal experiences and my opinions of what led to the company eventually ending up as a disaster, could you please just give us an overview of what Fuya Wande was?
Okay, very interesting. Fuya Wande is a business that completely failed. That one way. And I still question myself, how did we lose this? And I still don't know. I still don't
we lost a
understand
lot
why
of
we
money
lost.
though.
We invested around 50K
Yeah.
in its initial investment, and then there were money that we were putting
Additional
in place
monies.
every month. Yeah, additional monies every month. And also, so just to give you an overview of Fuya Wande was a livestock company focusing mostly on Don Merino. We're farming Don Merino. And the purpose of that, we wanted to farm, breed, and sell. that's what we wanted to do. And it was a very interesting business model. But what we did, we bought our first livestock in Matatiele, different region, taking it to Bizarre.
No, we took it to Mount Frey.
Yeah, Mount Frey. Yeah, Mount Frey. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we took it to Mount Frey, from Matatiele to Mount Frey. You can imagine the dynamics in terms of the environment and also the adaptation of the livestock. So it's one of the things that we learned. In fact, I wouldn't want even to go there. Maybe it's where you will relate better than me, because my heart just cringes when I think about how we lost that business. But it's a very lucrative business. It's a farming business.
Yeah.
And I would encourage anyone to consider farming, because when you're doing farming, you talk about food security, which is very important.
Absolutely, especially in Africa, man.
Yeah, so we have an opportunity. There's a very good opportunity for farming, especially in the Eastern Cape region. So anyone who's in the Eastern Cape, they might want to think about farming. But before you do that, you need to do proper research. Also, it's something that we didn't do with Ufuyawande. Same mistake we did, but now in a different domain.
Yeah, and I feel like this one was exponential.
Yeah, very true, very true. I think you can give us a glimpse of how we.
Yeah, I think you've already touched on the very first big mistake. In fact, I think ultimately the biggest contributing factor to our failing as a farming startup, and that is the fact that we acquired livestock from a different region. And we were looking at establishing the farm at a different region. Now, this applies to both plants and animals. You need to conduct, and I think even more broadly, regardless of what industry you're in, conducting proper research. Proper research. So our very first mistake was not taking care to analyze how the species thrives or how it doesn't thrive in a different environment with different climatic conditions. So we went for price, and we established that Matatiele, for the breed of sheep we were interested in farming, has a relatively low fee in comparison, and so we want to purchase from Matatiele and then establish the farm in Mount Frey. So I think that's the first and biggest mistake we made. We should have done more research into the species. What conditions does it thrive, and what climatic conditions and environmental factors cause threat to the species, and so on and so forth.
And how many did we buy at once? Did we buy 10?
I think it was 12 to start off.
Yeah, a very huge investment. You can imagine what you were thinking about, the outlook, the growth that we had in mind. You see, the vision was very clear. We're very clear about what we wanted to do. And we wanted to grow as fast as possible. But then the groundwork, no foundation has been done.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And another thing that I think contributed to our imminent failure as a business is something I spoke a bit about a little earlier, in that we didn't first conduct or undertake to conduct a team building exercise. Established the level of commitments from each of the members, and then established the skills and expertise that each member brought to the fore, which would then would have enabled for us to delegate responsibilities accordingly. So we completely failed to conduct that. Maybe not a team building exercise, but certainly an exercise which would have made each one of the members aware of the other, and build that working relationship. And as a result, months into the capital raising initiative, we established that some members just weren't as committed as others were. Um, we established that other members had different motives for engaging in this initiative. And we even learned that some members were never really interested per se, but they were sort of influenced by other members to engage.
Yes,
Hence,
yes.
their interest and level of commitment was perceivably less than other or the commitment other members had. And I think another huge challenge was that it was a team of 5 individuals, and of the 5 individuals, well, only one resided in the Eastern Cape.
So we're remoting the business,
Yeah,
and
we're
I
remoting the
think,
business. Not a single one
and I think,
resides at the exact town. The nearest member is about 60 kilometers away. So travel to the farm
mm.
whenever they get a chance to, which was, I think, on average once per month, maybe once every 3 weeks. So we remoted the business and we outsourced the running of the farm to someone whom we had not had a conversation with when we established the business.
To someone that we do not even
And only
know.
one
You
member can
see?
communicate with directly, by the way.
That was very interesting. And also, just to touch on the issue of team alignment, I would want to point our listeners to something called team alignment map. So what you need to do when you define a team or when you establish a team, you need to actually first start on a mission. What is our mission? What are we trying to achieve here? Then you need to have something called the time box. So it's for an agreement. So here you create a joint team objectives. What do we intend to do? What do we intend to achieve together? Which is very important. And then just go back to what we've touched on, the issue of commitment. You also need to identify commitment levels for each team, because so it makes things very easy to understand our commitment levels and also to run the business smoothly without pointing fingers. So for team members, joint commitments, what does that do? Who is required to do what? And that their key skills as well as their key strengths and weaknesses. We need to look into that to understand what is my biggest skill, what is my biggest weakness, how can we position, where can I as an individual contribute towards the success of this ship, which is very important. And then also the mistake that we didn't do, what you need to do when you identify a team, joint the resource needed to succeed, resources needed to succeed. You need to write down all the resources that are needed for us to succeed. And we didn't know what resources we needed. We bought the ship, put there in Mount Frere, and then we start looking for someone who's going to take care of this. Interesting. See? So those are key things that we should have done before we even went and buy even our initial investment. We know what are the resources we need, write down the biggest risk that could arise. Did we even think about the risk and how we're going to actually ensure that we prevent those risks and what we needed for us to succeed? So those are the key things that you want to look at when you actually work on a team dynamic or when you're establishing a team. It's important that you sit down and understand that. I also understand and address the resource constraints, describe them. What is our constraints and how we're going to actually mitigate those? What could be the material effect of our constraints? And then we set the joint dates and we validate everything, sit down as a team. It makes it very easy to understand who is clearly committed. And also it makes it easy for one to exit as soon as possible.
Yeah, and another thing, and I think this applies to both Fuyawande and Visual Matrix. It would have done us a world of good if we had sourced a mentor, not someone who is fully involved in the day-to-day runnings, but someone we can bounce some ideas off, share some thoughts and request that they give us feedback. And in both these instances, we failed to do that. We went at it with passion alone. Um, and
Exactly.
yeah, that came back to bite us in the backside in a very big way. in both instances. So I think we could have, especially in the case of Uyawande, speak to farmers, farmers in both regions and even outside of the two regions, the region from which we source the livestock and the region we're looking to establish the farm. What are some of the things that you need to look out for? And if we've done that, perhaps someone we could have potentially consulted may have given us the advice to say, first take care to establish whether or not this species does well under these climatic and environmental conditions. Change our mind. So if you can, and maybe in part this is what we're doing, but I wouldn't encourage that to rely entirely on us. It would be great if you find someone that is industry specific, so that's in your industry. Although there are great benefits to getting a mentor that does not operate within your specific industry, but that's a story for another day. But yeah, get someone whom you can validate some things with, someone to challenge your basic assumptions, someone who is looking inwards from the outside, someone who's going to bring in new and fresh perspectives. Because in it
Exactly.
looking outwards, there are certainly some things that you're gonna miss. So I think that could have put us at a slightly better position than us completely going at it green without any insight from someone who's perhaps more seasoned
Mm,
in
mm,
walking the
mm.
journey. And maybe, Sipo, this is a standalone topic on its own. And maybe we could tackle it, and it would be interested to have a guest who is maybe an expert in the field. But we had a particularly interesting leader in our journey with the Fuyawande,
We are one
hold to
days.
a very high regard, and someone who I completely admire,
Mm,
and respect just in terms of their leadership style. But I think, um, given the form of business we had decided to undertake, his leadership style may have needed a bit of augmentation to suit that particular business model. And maybe before I hand over to you, just for the benefit of our listeners, so that I'm not being vague and and not coming out pume so to speak. So our
mm.
leader, he was refreshing to me. I'd been exposed to a number of leaders prior to that, and I myself had been placed in a position of leadership in a few instances. But this gentleman came with a completely fresh approach to me. He was a leader who was first, and this I think is a trait that I admire in him the most, was decisive. So he would establish what was best, considering his understanding of the environment and the various dynamics. And he, by the way, was the individual who was the only one based in the Eastern Cape, although he was about 60 kilometers from the farm. But he was at least closest to the rest of us. I think three of us are in Gauteng. At the time, it was two in Pretoria, one in Joburg, and one of our other members was all the way in Cape Town, I think in Stellenbosch. He was the
Yeah,
only
I
one
was
on
in
the
Seven.
ground, and he was traveling just about
Mm,
every 3 weeks to the farm. And he would make observations, and then he would decide on what is required, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of personnel, in terms vet
mm.
consultations, in terms of feed, and so on and so forth. We had completely delegated the responsibility of running the farm, if you're being frank, to him, as he was the only one on the ground. And I admire the fact that he was so decisive in his decision making and what he thought was needed at the time. I remember he utilized a chunk of our capital to build infrastructure without
Yes.
without any consultation prior, and it was a significant amount of the capital. A percentage that I think in most companies would require a bit of
A consultation, yes.
consultation and maybe a board decision. If corporates, and this gentleman, say in his position would have been, he went on that span. completely on his own. And I remember specifically calling you after the meeting in which he reported the span, and I gave him high praises to say, "This is so refreshing to me. Someone who's able to act and consult later." Which is something I hadn't observed in my years of business and in corporate. But it's something I admire. And I mean, there's a few other examples of
It,
acting now and then consulting later, which I admired. And I think it would be unfair just on the record of us to put completely on his head the failure of Uyawane. Yes, he was the accounting officer, but I don't think he was completely accountable. I think there's a number of other things, that contributed to the ultimate demise of the establishment. Think he was
that
responsible for all of it. But I think, yeah, maybe a topic for a different day, but you may want to have one or two comments on it. The importance of leadership if you are going at a group venture, but also if you are going on an individual journey. What are some of the leadership skills you should have? Because even if you don't have any employees, even if you don't have any people or members you are accountable to, you are a leader in with the conversations you have with your potential suppliers. You are a leader in being the face of the brand and the company. You are a leader to your customers as well. So maybe a topic for a different day, but maybe just a few comments on it and your experience with the leadership we had under Fiyawande.
Yeah, so I think it was interesting. Our leader was doing the most. It was a very decisive leader, which is it's one thing that you need. You don't need someone who continuously uh, looking for views from other people. Sometimes you need to get a point where you need to decide. And most of the time, maybe our leader was had to make decisions at the instance because also he didn't have time, a lot of time in the farm. So wherever I go to the farm, he has to make a lot of decisions in there and then report back to us. But one of the key things, I think it's important that at some point we would want to talk about the importance of leadership and the leadership qualities, especially we would want to look at those who have built successful businesses. So it's a topic that we want to actually touch on. But also it's important as a leader to be agile and be flexible. Flexibility is one of the key traits for leaders. And also you need to to be open to learning. Because when you lead, you work with people, and also if you work with people, your views will be challenged. So you won't want to use your position as a leader to block out every views that are coming from your people. So your people are very important. They are the ones that are going to ensure that you succeed. So they are working with you. Also, decision making, like we say. So this is one of the key traits from our leader for Fiyawande. Very good with decision making and also critical thinking. You need to be very clear about critical thinking and problem solving skills are very important because you are the captain of the ship. So as a captain, you need to be very clear in mind. Your mind has to be set. You need to be able to solve problems because sometimes your employees would want you to decide, would want you to look at them, would want you to provide direction, would want you to motivate them when there's morale is going down. So those are key things that we want to look at. But it's an interesting topic that we want to look at and also invite someone who is skilled in the art to provide us more insights in terms of leadership skills that you need, especially when you're running startup companies. Because sometimes you do not have a lot of employees, you are just alone. But it doesn't mean you are not making decisions. You are not leading. You are leading your business. So it's important that you also how you manage your finances, how you think, how flexible you are, how agile, and all those things are very important for you. And also the resilience. I think that's one of the key things because sometimes you will meet a lot of challenges, stumbling blocks. How resilient you are will play a critical role in the success of your business. But then just to quickly over a few points that I would want to leave our listeners with.
Before you go to the points, if I was actually going to ask that you do so, before we conclude the episode, just on the point around leadership and resilience, I do want to speak about the reality of the entrepreneurial journey. we look at successful entrepreneurs and we don't see the failures and struggles they have and various other challenges they've had to go through in order to get to that position. And a nice example is I enjoy sport and so I refer to sports a lot, but consider a footballer who's great at taking free kicks. For every free kick that guy scores, he's probably missed 100, but he was refining his ability to finally be able to position the ball so well that it goes in maybe 8 out of 10 times in a real life game or whatever the case might be. But we tend to neglect to acknowledge the hard work and for what it's worth, boring work and difficult work that is behind the glitz and the glamour. We look at a successful entrepreneur and we only see that. We think they had a great idea and it was just easy to lift off the ground. But the reality is that there is so much, quite frankly, undesirable work that you need to do. I mean, there's the administration it's dreadful. you know, the tireless meetings, having to convince people. And I think that's where the resilient element of it comes in. You
Comes
need
in,
to
yes.
be mentally strong, and you must be willing to take those on, and understand that it's a requirement in order for you to move on to the next level. It's never easy, and there's a great saying that says nothing worth it comes easy.
Very
And
true.
yeah, you need to understand that it's hard grafting, man. It's difficult.
It's a lonely journey.
It's
It's
a
a lonely
lonely,
journey.
lonely journey,
Mm.
and that's something you need to adjust your mind to as well, so that you aren't deterred on the first difficult encounter you are met with, that you overcome that one, and then you become stronger. And, experience is a great teacher. There will be some
Exactly.
things that you acquire through experience. And I said earlier that you may not need to play with fire to get burnt. You might see you playing with fire and get burnt and know to stay away from fire. But some things you are going to need to get involved with personally in order for you to understand the gravity of the situation and to have a full appreciation of it. And I think it's very important to our listeners that they understand, especially those who have ambitions to become entrepreneurs, it is not going to be easy. If you are fortunate to run into sums of money at an early stage, um, then you can make it that much less painful by appointing people to take
Mm.
care of the mundane and boring work that is involved with being an entrepreneur. But for the rest of us, we have to go through it until we get to a point where we are able to appoint officers we trust and can fully rely upon, and build a team to share with a shared common vision
Common
to
vision,
help
yes.
us work towards our desired destination. But I just wanted to stress that one that you need to be prepared for it. It's not all glitz and glam. It's it's
Mm.
not. In fact, I would say the glitz and glam are a very small percentage of it, and they only come in after years. If Unless you are extremely lucky. There are exceptions, but generally speaking, you need to be mentally prepared for it. But yeah, please, Sipho,
Yeah.
you in your article you had some great pointers, and yeah, and I'm assuming that we're probably nearing the closing of the episode. But yeah, we would be remiss if we didn't hear some of the other considerations that you need to make for building sustainable business.
Yeah, so I will just point our listeners to the article, key factors that you need to look at before you can establish a business. Also, it's on the Growth Link blog. You would learn a lot in there, but on the top of it, you would want to spend a lot of time evaluating yourself. Personal evaluation is very important. Like we said, is business for everyone? No, it's not for everyone. There are people that are not entrepreneurs, so it's important that you evaluate yourself, and if you are willing to take the risk, then go for it. But then understand your shortfalls, understand the requirements. So in fact, your skills, understand who you're going to need. So it's important that you do a lot of personal evaluation, and also evaluate the opportunity that we have identified. Is it really sustainable in the long run? So it's very important that you do that. If it's a problem or unmet needs, do customers really care about that problem being solved? Is it urgent to them? So it's questions that you need to do. So you're not only evaluating the opportunity, also the problem that you want to solve. And also look at the competitors. Who is solving this problem? How are they solving it? What are the challenges or what are the shortfalls in the solutions that they do provide? And it will give you a glimpse of, it will give you an idea of the approach that you can take, which might be different from the way that the problem is being solved. So it's important in there. And also identify your market, do a lot of market research. Who is affected by this problem, or who will benefit from my solution? How are they going to benefit? Also, just on that, I want to stress this. When you start a business is not just about products and services. People do not buy products and services for the sake of it. There's something that they want to achieve whenever they buy a product. Something we will call it a jobs to be done. There's jobs to be done. Hence, they borrow that product for that specific solution to achieve it. So have that in mind. How am I going to help my customers achieve their goals? What is their goals? What are they trying to achieve when they actually adopt my solution or when they adopt my product? So also spend a lot of time trying to understand them. And also, how can you make it easy for them to achieve their jobs to be done? See, I'm also giving a glimpse of how you need to understand your market, your customers, and also how important is it that they would want to get this problem solved, or they would, to an extent that they would want to spend their money on it. Also, do a lot of research about the requirements, the tools and resources that you need to put in place for your business to run seamlessly. What are the systems that you have to put in place? Do that before you can even start with the business. You do a proper research. And also pricing. You need to do a lot of work around pricing because it's one that kills businesses. Also, pricing is also determined by the type of your customer or your customer segments. Sometimes you need to look at the LSMs. What kind of people am I serving? What is their economic status? What is their buying behavior? What is their behaviors? It's very important that you spend a lot of time and then go validate, learn and unlearn, experiment, change, pivot. So it's very important that you do that. So before we even close, it would be unfair for us not to explain, to just give a glimpse to our listeners what exactly is sustainable business. I always want to make people understand what is sustainable. Sustainable business is that which can sustain itself. So it's important that you build something that is able to feed itself. So it's important that you spend time in there. What is sustainability in business? It can support itself, provide profits to its owners and shareholders. And it's not only about profits, but now it serves the customers. It meets the customer demands, because that's one of the key things that you want to achieve. When you start a business, you want to meet customer demands. Make sure that you answer their challenges. And also, if you are building a sustainable business, there's few things that you need to look at. One thing that I always say, which is very important, your friends are not your customers, especially when you're starting a business. They, in fact, always make sure that when you validate your business ideas, you do not validate with them. Do not trust their judgment. One thing, they do not want to hurt you. So they will always make sure that they give you something that you want. So you need people who will give you objective advice, objective feedback with the product that we are producing. And also, interesting part, your friends do not trust you, especially when starting. They know your weaknesses. They know. So most of the time, they won't trust you until you are in it, until you are running it. That's when they will come. So also otherwise, if you start a business and hoping that your friends and families are the one who's going to buy first from you, you'll end up conniving. You will be resentful of them, and which is not right. Those are the people that you need to go back to them when things are not going right. To your friends, they are the ones that are going to help you, to motivate you, to keep you going. But then don't expect them to be the first buyers. So it's important that you have that if you want to build a sustainable business. So those are the key things that you want to look at before you can even establish a business. And also when you're running a business now you already have the business. It's important that you have clear revenue streams. Always validate your business model, your revenue models. It's very important that you evaluate those. Also, pay close attention to building the brand. Remember, building a brand. If you want customer loyalty, start with the customer experience. The experience that you give your customers will tell you if you will have a sustainable business or not. So customer onboarding must be very clear, easy. It must be easy for you to get to customers. Customers must have a easy flow to get to your products and services. And also, if you have a proper and clear, great customer experience, I'm telling you, will have a sustainable business, and also will have a pool of loyal customers. So it's important that you spend a lot of time there. Also, last, one of the key things, take care of your people. They are first line of your defense. So I'm talking, when I'm saying your people, I'm talking about the people you're working with to build this business, your employees. Make sure that you take care of those people, because if they are not happy, your customers are not going to be happy, your business will not perform, and eventually you'll close. So it's important that we just keep that in mind when we actually get into this entrepreneurship. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, I really do encourage people to read the article. It outlines each of these key factors in a lot more detail. Obviously, detail we won't be able to cover due to time constraints on this podcast, but I do encourage our listeners to check that post out. And maybe what we could do, Sipho, is put out the link on our social media platforms so that people can can access it directly from any one of our social media platforms. You touched on something quite critical there in establishing the jobs that your business is doing, or the pains that it's relieving. And a very quick example. Firstly, I'd encourage our listeners to Google or do a bit of research on something called the value proposition canvas. It unpacks these quite in a very nice manner. And then a very simple example is that if you think of a car, right, you think of a technology or a vehicle that is able to take you from point A to point B. And then you start to think about a Ferrari, for example, especially in the context of South Africa. There's a very great joke I once heard that says, in South Africa, a Quantum is faster than a Ferrari, because Quantum run in the yellow lane, especially in Gauteng or Joburg, let's say. And if you are driving a Ferrari, you're probably gonna drive, in the appropriate lane, and therefore the Quantum is gonna get to point B before you. In any case, if you consider a Ferrari, it's no longer about getting you from point A to point B, but it's serving another job or relieving pain. And it's up for argument, but it's probably serving your status in society, and making you feel good about yourself. And you're saying to everyone who's seen you drive your Ferrari drop down that I have arrived, this is me, look at what I've achieved. And it's no longer really about getting from point A to point B. And so it may be something as simple as an ice cream shop that you're running. But what service are you really, or what product are you really selling? Is it good tasting ice cream? Is that really the primary value proposition? Or is it an Instagrammable moment? Have a good, great backdrop that, people are going to come to your ice cream shop so that they can take a picture and tag themselves to show to the rest of their followers that, hey, I also chow, this very exclusive ice cream brand, or whatever the case. And so those are certainly things that you need to think about. You might be selling a certain product or providing a certain service, but beyond that, what are you really, really selling? What are you really offering? What problem or what job are you servicing, or what pain are you relieving? And I mean, we still have a lot of great episodes and a lot of things to discuss, but there is a concept that we are working on as a broader group, and it's a gaming concept. And in thinking about our competitors, when we're doing market research, we thought, who are our competitors? And we actually came to establish that, and we may have spoken a bit about this in the first episode. We thought that the likes of bars, the likes of cinemas, the likes
Exactly.
of your swimming pools, and other things that people do to entertain themselves might be our competitors and not other gaming stations, because what we are competing for is people's time. What we are selling isn't a gaming experience,
Exactly.
relaxing experience. Now, we want to take people who are relaxing by going to the bar so that they come to relax at our gaming center. And so, if you think about it that way, to say what beyond the actual product or service, what is it that I'm really offering? What job am I servicing? What pain am I relieving? Check out the value proposition. But before doing so, check out Growth Link and the article that delves into deep detail in terms of what factors you need to consider next. We need to consider for building a sustainable business. But yeah, Sipo, we have great things planned for the new year. I think our first episode in the new year is going to have great guests, guys who are doing amazing things in the technology space, guys who are really at the forefront of our adaptation rather of the fourth industrial revolution in the context of South Africa by making the internet accessible, you know, to the people of South Africa. So not going into too much detail, but just some highlights on our next episode in the new year. And I think in the next year we're gonna be having a lot more guests. And of course, we'd like to have any one of our viewers join us as guests, as a guest in the new year. But next year, first episode, just a brief highlight. What can we expect?
Yeah, for sure. For next year, it's going to be very exciting. So, most in January, everyone is excited. They're putting their plans in place.
Uh-huh.
They want to start. They're changing their diets. Some of them are
New year, new
fasting for the
me.
year to go. Yeah, new year, new me. So it's all, that's a very interesting one. So in fact, I met one of our listeners and we were just talking at work, and she indicated that, you know what, at some point you guys need to talk about this thing of goals in relation to do we really have everything under control? When we sit there and plan for the year, are we really into that? Do we have everything in control, or we can just sit and trust God? So the growth, this is just to touch on key things that we'll be talking about is the growth. Do we really have impact into that? Where does God come in? Spiritual growth. So what we decided that we're going to invite this particular person to come and give us her understanding of growth versus trusting God, putting your plans in place for the new year, what you need to look at, how can you actually prepare for the new year and the challenges that are going to come. So it's one of the topics that it's gonna be our first episode.
Okay, so
year.
that's right. I had things the other way around. Our first episode is the discussion around spirituality or spiritual alignment versus our goals and ambitions. And then our second episode in the new year that we'll be talking to the guys who are rolling out fiber across the country.
Yes, so our second episode we're talking with the guys that are doing amazing
work, man.
And they're putting this fiber, connecting people, connecting the unconnected, especially those neglected regions in the rural communities. But what's interesting in there, we'll be talking exactly about managing contractors. That's a very interesting, because remember, those jobs, you come into this particular community. Now you have to employ people who are from that community. How do you manage expectations? How do you deal with that? And also, you would have a lot of people who want to have a say in how you're running your business in that particular community, because it's their community. And then if you are not in line with what they want, you might not even get to put down the fiber or do the work that you want to do. So it's key things that we'll be talking about: how to manage contractors, and also how to manage expectations from the communities that we're working in. So it's a whole lot of it's an interesting year.
Yeah, it's an interesting year already. Another guest we can expect sometime during the course of next year, although they haven't committed to a date, is a guy who is a hardcore Pan-Africanist, and he's spoken at international forums. And his big thing is about equipping and enabling Africans to solve African problems, as opposed to us looking outwards. And I think that's something you're very passionate about as well. And I'm sure we're gonna have a number of other guests during the course of the year. So exciting things ahead, and I'm looking forward to the first episode of next year. Hey, I enjoy philosophical talk, and I expect and I am foreseeing a debate sprouting in the
Yeah,
next
yeah, it's
episode,
gonna
which is
that one
always
is gonna be
fantastic.
heated. It's gonna be very heated. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, otherwise, thank you so much for your time. And actually, it's very interesting to be growing with you. So please share this with your friends and also with your families. As you are going home, please share with your families. At least there must be something that we're learning.
Absolutely.
Come on board. Also give us feedback. Help us to actually make this ship grow.
Yeah, play this instead of amapiano during.
And also, as you go on the road, you can just listen to this. Those ones who have very long
Yeah,
drives that will be doing. Just listen. It's a nice an hour topic that is just to refresh your mind,
yeah,
and then you can play your music
yeah.
also. And also, you must take good care of yourself
Absolutely.
throughout the festive
Yeah.
season. Yeah, and be safe on the
Please,
road.
please, guys, be safe on the roads.
Mm,
Don't do anything
mm,
irresponsible. We need you next year. We need you contributing to making South Africa better. And I mean, even our international listeners, we need you guys to make the world better and your respect. So
mm,
please, please,
mm,
please
mm.
do take care of yourselves and stay away from irresponsible behavior. We missed Utembela in this one. It would have been great to have her, but I assure you guys she's gonna be with us in the next one, and she's with us in spirit, and I'm sure
Mm,
one
mm,
of you as
mm.
well. So take it easy, you guys. We'll catch you early in the next year with a new release of our podcast, The Business of Adulting.
Thank you so much. Do check out in all our social media
Yes.
platforms. Please,
Like,
please.
subscribe, engage. Cheers,
Mm.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.